Hello, this is Vladimir. Today I'm going to do a study and stream on the book Beyond Good and Evil. Before to talk about the book, I'd like to share with you one of my exercises which I do to improve my pronunciation. I decided that for every study and stream before starting it, I'd like to do some preparation. If you don't want to see it, just get there where I already finished it. So now this is an exercise which basically is, I watch a video. There is some preparation for, you have to massage your mouth and your muscles are to articulate better sounds. So now I'm going to watch this video and do everything what's going to be suggested doing in this video. Okay.
Here are some articulator exercises. So first, blow through your lips.
And also, when I watch videos like that, when I work on my pronunciation, I prefer to repeat after the speaker. So everything what she's going to say, I'm going to just repeat after or try to repeat after her. Sometimes I may miss one or another word, but generally, my idea is just to be able to repeat everything. Here are some articulate exercises. So first, blow through your lips. You can use a voice there, or you can unvoice. Blow through your tongue. And unvoiced. And just shake up your face. Okay, then don't take your tongue and you want to touch every single one of your teeth in the front, top, the back, top, the front, bottom, and back, bottom, like this. Faster. One more time. Good. Blow through your lips. Blow through your tongue. Next, I want to isolate your lip corners. So you isolate your lip corners, you blow straight back. Good. Now bring them forward. Now relax. Next, I'd like you to channel and bunch your tongue. So stick your tongue out of your mouth. This is a really challenging one, so train the mirror and watch yourself doing. Next, I'd like you to exercise your soft palate or velum. It's the part that moves when you yawn. So much go. Oh, no, you're on the right side only. Oh. 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 Yawn on both sides. Oh. No, you really feel your soft palate and it feels raised. So in accent training, soft palate will be raised, sometimes it will be dropped. We know what your soft palate is. Next, I want you to play with your tongue tip actions. So bring your top chin to your alveolar ridge. Gum ridge like behind your front teeth. La. 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 Le. Li. Law, lu. Then you will nothing else from me. This is a tricky one. So you want to stick your tongue out and articulate a phrase around your tongue. You overworking the muscles of your tongue. It's on a baseball player picks some button, waits it, and goes up to play. And it goes up to play, he takes the way out, and it's easy to swing. This is the same concept. So you want to, if you're, you want to stick your tongue out, say, stick the teeth, I pray you, that pronounce the through, and the thumb. And you stick your tongue back in, and it's pretty easy to say. speak this.
Practice these
Okay.
articulator exercises every day, 5 minutes.
So this is just one exercise. Yeah, I probably do it on a daily basis. Not all of these exercises, of course. I have many of them. So I watch several guys on YouTube who talk about exercises like that. For example, this girl, yeah, she talks all the time about certain exercises, and her channel is all about pronunciation, American pronunciation. This guy improve your voice. Yeah, I also watch his videos regularly. Not regularly, but recently I started watching his most popular videos, and there are some nice exercises too. This guy, it's more about reading voice. Still, I will watch some of his exercises. Yeah, I'm trying to find every time. I'm trying to find a new guy every time on the internet, and as soon as I'm bored, I just look for another guy and watch their exercises and try to integrate them in my experience and use them on a regular basis. Since I'm struggling with pronunciation for 4 years. For now, it's already 4 years, and I improved it a little bit. Maybe improved not just a little bit, but a lot. But still, I want to get to the excellent pronunciation, and working on it daily, 5-10 minutes. I always have 5-10 minutes, and yeah, I hope that in the future I'll be able to get there. But for now, what I have, I'm doing my best, and see whether or not it's possible to get where I want to get, to develop a really kind of natural pronunciation. So lots of people talk on the internet, do this, do that, and you'll sound perfect. And I do everything they tell me. Most of what they tell me, I do it, and I do it for 4 years. And I'm working on my pronunciation seriously for more than 4 years. I think about it almost on a daily basis. I do, sometimes I do just 5-10 minute exercise when I'm exhausted, but usually, I may start doing it for half an hour a day or even more, certain exercises to just improve my pronunciation. And it's always in my, as I say, I'm thinking about it daily and doing something daily. And still the result, as you can see, it's not perfect. And I'm just interested whether or not it's possible to get to the level where I'll be able to sound like an American. And no matter if it's not possible, I'm going to do it for the rest of my life for 5-10 minutes. Sometimes, of course, when I have more power and time, I may do it for half an hour or even more. Anyway, so today I'm talking about 13th paragraph of Beyond Good and Evil. And before, let me just recap the previous 2 paragraphs, 11th and 12th. Okay, let's do that. It seems to me that there's everywhere an attempt at present to divert attention from the actual influence which Kant exercised on German philosophy, and especially to ignore prudently the value which he set upon himself. Kant was first and foremost proud of his table of categories. With it in his hand, he said that this is the most difficult thing that could ever be undertaken on behalf of metaphysics. Let us only understand this could be. He was proud of having discovered a new faculty in man, the faculty of synthetic judgments a priori. Granting that he deceived himself in that matter, the development and rapid flourishing of German philosophy depended nonetheless on his pride and the eager rivalry of the younger and on the eager rivalry of the younger generation to discover, if possible, something at all event new faculties of which to be still prouder. But let us reflect for a moment. It is high time to do so. How are synthetic judgments a priori possible? Kant asks himself. And what is really his answer? By means of a means, faculty. But unfortunately not in 5 words, but so circumstantially, so imposingly, with such display of German profundity, that one altogether loses sight of comical misery allemande involved in such an answer. People were, besides themselves, with delight over this new faculty, and the jubilation reached its climax when Kant further discovered a moral faculty. For at that time, Germans were still moral and not yet dabbling in the politics of the hard facts. Then came the honeymoon of German philosophy. All the young theologians of Tübingen institution went immediately into the groves, all looking for faculties. And what they only did not find in that innocent, rich, and still youthful period of German spirit, to which Romanticism, the malicious fairy, pipe and sang, when one could not distinguish between finding and inventing. Above all, the faculty for the transcendental. Schelling christened it intellectual intuition, and thereby gratified the most eager and the most eager longings of naturally pious inclined Germans. One can do no greater wrong to the whole of this exuberant and eccentric movement, which was really youthfulness, notwithstanding that it disguised itself so boldly in hoary and senile conceptions, than to take it seriously or even treat it with moral indignation. Enough, however. The world grew older and the dream vanished. People rubbed their, a time came when people rubbed their forehead, and they still rub it today. People were dreaming. People had been dreaming, and first and foremost, old Kant, by means of a means faculty, he said, or at least meant to say. But is that an answer, an explanation, or is it rather merely a repetition of the question? How does opium induce sleep? Asks. How does opium induce sleep? By means of a means faculty, namely virtus dormitiva, replies the doctor in Molière, quia est in eo virtus dormitiva, cuius est natura sensus assopire. But such replies belong to the realm of comedy, and it's high time to replace the Kantian question, how are synthetic judgments a priori possible, by another question, why is belief in such judgments necessary? In effect, it is high time that we should understand that the belief that such judgments must be believed to be true. Must be believed to be true, though they may, though they still, for such judgments must be believed to be true for the sake of the preservation of creatures like ourselves, though they still may naturally be false judgments. Or more plainly spoken and readily and roughly, synthetic judgments a priori should not be possible at all. We have no right to them. In our maths, they're nothing but false judgments. Only, of course, the belief in their truth is necessary as a plausible belief and ocular evidence belonging to the view of perspective of life. Finally, to call to mind the enormous influence which German philosophy, I hope you understand it's right to the inverted commas, goose feet, has exercised throughout the whole of Europe, there is no doubt that a certain virtus dormitiva had a share in it. Thanks to German philosophy, it was a delight to the noble idlers, the virtuous, the mystics, the artists, the three-fourth Christians, and the political obscurities of all nations to find an antidote to the still overwhelming sensualism which overflowed from the last century into this. In short, sensus assopire. 12. As regards atomistic materialism, it is one of the best refuted theories that have been advanced. And in Europe, there is now perhaps no one in the learned world so unscholarly as to attach serious signification to it, except for convenient everyday use as abbreviation of the means of expression. Thanks to the Paul Boscovich, he and the Paul Copernicus have hitherto been the greatest and the most successful opponents of ocular evidence. For while Copernicus has persuaded us to believe, contrary all the senses, that the earth does not stand fast, Boscovich has taught us to abjure the belief in the last thing that stood fast of earth, the belief in substance, in matter, in earth, residuum, and particle atom. It is the greatest triumph over the senses that has hitherto been gained on earth. One must, however, go still further and also declare war, relentless war to the knife, against the atomistic requirements, which still lead a dangerous afterlife in places where no one suspects them, like the more celebrated metaphysical requirements. One must also, above all, give the finishing stroke to that other and more portentous atomism, which Christianity has taught best and longest, the soul atomism. Let it be permitted to designate by this expression the belief which regards the soul as something indestructible, eternal, indivisible, as a monad, as an atomon. This belief ought to be expelled from science. Between ourselves, it is not at all necessary to get rid of the soul thereby, and thus dismiss one of the oldest and venerated hypotheses, as happens frequently to the clumsiness of naturalists, who can hardly touch on the soul without immediately losing it. But the way is open to new acceptations and refinements of the soul hypothesis, and such conceptions as mortal soul, soul of subjective multiplicity, and soul as social structure of the instincts and passions, want henceforth to have legitimate rights in science. The new psychologists, the new psychologist is about to put an end to the superstitions which have hitherto flourished around the idea of the soul with almost tropical luxuriance. He is really, as it were, thirsting himself into a new desert and a new distrust. It is possible that the older psychologists have a merrier and more comfortable time of it. Eventually, however, he finds that precisely thereby he is condemned to invent and perhaps, and who knows, perhaps to discover the new. All right, so I repeated this the last paragraph, the 12th paragraph, for 4 days. Yeah, and I see now it's for me a little bit harder. I don't know, maybe it's because I have to keep in mind all previous paragraphs and repeat them from time to time, or maybe it's just too much of a weight. But I remember, like before, it was much easier. I could memorize the entire paragraph and repeat just by repeating it twice a day, spending 10 minutes, maybe a little bit more. I could easily not just remember it, but also place it in the, like I remember it and then I repeat the entire sequence of these paragraphs. But now it's a little bit harder, and I see there's some resistance already started forming in me. So I want to finish this exercise. So I want to get through 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 is B, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So I want to get through the first chapter, I want to finish it as fast as possible and, shift to something else. While I was doing this exercise, by the way, now it's the end of the summer. So summer has ended. This is the second September 2nd. And I started doing this exercise at the end of May. And I was consistently doing it for the entire summer. And I've got, to this, I've got here, like accomplishing this exercise on a weekly basis. And I've got through the half of the story, let's say. And I see that it'll take the entire autumn to accomplish this. But now, as I said, there are many other instincts, let's call them that way, which demand which demand attention. And the point is, now I see how I can use this wonderful habit which I developed during this summer, basically to memorize a huge piece of text during a week, and then be able to say it without looking at the actual text. And yeah, I mean, now, for example, I have this speaking club which I have been running for more than 4 years, and I see how wonderful it could be if I just if I write a speech, for example, of a big speech, just there are few pages, few actual pages. It's going to take probably, if I'll read it fast, it's going to take few minutes. And well, I may write a speech like that for an introduction or the ending of the speaking club, then memorize it, rehearse it, and deliver it. I mean, to make it kind of, so instead of just being always spontaneous and instead of improvising 100%, yeah, I may just prepare some stuff and see how it's going to change the whole thing, just to improve our conversations. I mean, it's easy for me. The whole point is it's easy for me. I don't invest a lot of energy. So basically, I don't even think about it. So now I'm concerned with all other things. I'm reading some books and watching some videos and studying analytic philosophy. And this is just an exercise which takes again 10 minutes. Plus, of course, I do this serious work here, doing studying streams and analyzing. So before I memorize the paragraph, I go through it slowly and analyze it and try to understand what it actually means. All right, so today, we are going to analyze this paragraph, which is quite short, which means it's not going to take us a lot of time. And moreover, it means that I don't need, I can relax this week. I mean, I don't need to memorize it. It's just for me 10 minutes or even less. And then I maybe not less, maybe a little bit more, maybe 15 minutes actually. Yeah, and then I may just get rest from repeating it, even though it's not hard. Okay, probably I'll repeat a couple of times the entire thing, since during this week I didn't repeat. I was working only on this paragraph, the 12th paragraph. A few times I repeated previous 2 paragraphs, and I didn't repeat the entire story, let's say. Okay, psychologists should bethink themselves before putting down the instinct of self-preservation as the cardinal instinct of an organic being. Okay, what bethink means, to be cautious, careful, to doubt, bethink. Yeah, there's no in Longman dictionary, there's no definition of bethink. Come to think. Okay, he bethought himself of the verse of the book of Proverbs. Bethink. Come to think. So there's no, is there any other definition? Just begin to think, to cause oneself to be, reminded, to cause oneself to consider. Okay, just psychologists should be think, just pay attention, probably, right? And think about something. Psychologists should bethink themselves before putting down the instinct of self-preservation as the cardinal instinct of an organic being. This is huge. I mean, now in science, especially in biology, behavioristic biology, for example, by Robert Sapolsky on the internet, 26 lectures on behavioristic biology, where the major theme is that everything we do is 100% explained through our genetic, no, not just genetic, genes plus environment, but essentially the point is this instinct of self-preservation. It's the greatest instinct which rules all our behavior, which is quite plausible, but again, doesn't actually mean that this instinct can't be overthrown by other instincts. So when you think, okay, self-preservation, but we know that, for example, there are certain cases of suicide, right? And it seems that you can't explain suicide through self-preservation. Like, what exactly are you trying to preserve? And if suicide was made only by those people who are in extreme pain and can no longer live, it could be a plausible explanation. But sometimes it's just people commit suicides just without any obvious reason, just because they're in a depression, or there's something happened and they decide, no, I'm not going to live my life after this event, simply because this is the ultimate flaw which can be erased, and I don't want to if if some girl doesn't love me, I don't want to live further. Anyway, yeah, this interesting. Like, I guess I don't remember this paragraph. I don't know what's going to be said later, but I'm just want to think about, Nietzsche probably is going to argue against this idea that this instinct is the most powerful instinct. It may be the most powerful, but again, it doesn't mean that we can't overthrow it on purpose. Suppose we have other instincts, and they may basically, like in the case of those who commit themselves to serve humanity, even though again it may be false. It maybe this is the most important instinct, and it's legitimate right to govern human behavior is legitimate, right? But still there may be cases when we choose to be governed by some other instincts, like in all these talks about morality and about serving others. It's not in interests of our self-preservation, but still we may just overthrow self-preservation and commit ourselves to something else, some higher cause, as they call it. It may be false. The point is, it may be false for us as creatures, as living beings, right? But it still may be the case. So it doesn't matter why we achieved that, why we overthrew this instinct. But the point is possible to do. And yeah, okay, let's just read Nietzsche. Well, I will not read the entire paragraph and talk about it. A living thing seeks above all to discharge its strength. Life itself is will to power. Self-preservation is only one of the indirect and most frequent results thereof. In short, here as everywhere else, let us beware of superfluous theological principles, one of which is the instinct of self-preservation. We owe it to Spinoza's inconsistency. It is thus, in effect, that method ordains, which must be essentially economy of principles. I want to know what the word ordains means. To officially make someone a priest or religious leader. Okay. It is thus, in effect, that method ordains, which must be essentially economy of principles. Okay, let's consider it again slowly. Yeah, I see that my intuition led me in a wrong direction. Nietzsche doesn't talk about overthrowing the essential instincts, but about something else. Anyway, psychologists should bethink themselves before putting down the instinct of self-preservation as the cardinal instinct of an organic being. The cardinal instinct of an organic being. A living thing seeks above all to discharge its strength. Discharge its strength. Life itself is will to power. Self-preservation is only one of the indirect and most frequent results thereof. In short, here as everywhere else, let us beware of superfluous teleological principles, one of which is the instinct of self-preservation. We owe it to Spinoza's inconsistency. It is thus, in effect, that method ordains, which must be essentially economy of principles. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I fully understand what's going on here. That's why I'm trying to read it a couple of times. Now I'm going to read it the third time. So I see here, yeah, what's going on. There's psychologists. Nietzsche warns them to bethink themselves before considering, let's just use different words, considering the instinct of self-preservation as the major instinct of an organic, of a person. Organic being. Okay, let's use organic beings in the person, actually. He talks about life. Yeah, about life forms, right? An organism. So in an organism, like what organism basically, it's a collection of organs, right? United under this principle of self-preservation. Okay, a living thing seeks above all to discharge its strength. Well, it's kind of, you can understand it. So you have, you have certain energy, and you have to apply this energy. So we wake up, and it seems to be almost impossible just to lie in bed and do nothing. There's certain drives to go and do something, right? And these drives are based on energy, right? On the charge. So we eat food, there's lots of, molecules, whatever, neurotransmitters, hormones, and they force us to do something, to move our bodies. And it seems to be obvious that discharge our strength is something which makes us do things in the world. So self-preservation is basically, if you want to preserve yourself, like, just let's think about it in a kind of abstract way. So for self-preservation, it's possible that you get food, but then if it's an ultimate instinct, you don't need to worry about anything else. So you get food, then you just lie in bed and do nothing. Like you digest it, and then you get more food, digest it, and and it's not about, of course, getting food. You also go and seek self-preservation. It's not about maintaining the organism, but it's also about seeking other creatures and breeding, passing genes into a new generation. All right, I see. Discharge. Okay, life itself is will to power. This is Nietzschean thesis, the main thesis, which is obviously. Nietzsche was a great skeptic, but finally he became, I wouldn't say that he became a dogmatist, but this idea of will to power, it's pretty dogmatic. And I tried to read Nietzsche's, it wasn't his book, since it was published after his madness, and he never published it himself, like this book, The Will to Power. And when I read it, after reading all of his previous books, maybe not all, maybe like most of them, and I wouldn't like, it was one of the books which I understood it, but mostly it was about politics, and there were lots of things about politics which I thought, Nietzsche thinking about politics sounds very strange. But anyway, I say it was for me, like, my subjective perception, the book Will to Power was one of the weakest books of Nietzsche, whereas, for example, Beyond Good and Evil is one of his strongest books. But anyway, so will to power, life itself is will to power. Yeah, in this case, like, what exactly he means by will to power, there's Schopenhauerian will, which is life. And again, it's probably he just tries to give a direction to Schopenhauerian will, which he dismisses, saying that Schopenhauerian will does not exist at all, since will in Schopenhauer, there's will which basically wants to live. So will is our, it's not even our, it's basically will to life, so, or for life, something that wants to live, to be, probably to be conscious, probably to feel, to perceive, or to be perceived. And for Nietzsche, like, life itself, living itself, how it's impossible to, like, it's kind of it's explaining, it's not even an explanation, like life, like, let's suppose that will is something that is our, oh man, I can't think about today. So today my thinking doesn't work well. It seems that for Nietzsche, if there's no direction, there's no life. So life basically, it's not. Yeah, this is a good analogy. So it's not. It's not a line. It's a vector, or it's not just speed. It's velocity. In physics, it's very important to distinguish between velocity and speed, whereas where speed is only like what is the speed in physics? How to define it clearly? Well, the point velocity is it's a directed speed, and the same with vector. So it's not just a line, but it's a certain direction. For Nietzsche, yeah, will to power is basically, it's not just will to life, but will to power. I want to leave. I want to get power. It's not like usually it's very misleading concept. I guess it may be substituted with the word energy or control, and will not lose its sense. So what Nietzsche meant, it was probably something. It's not just political power or power over others. Basically, power over yourself, self-control, and kind of energy. Yeah, it's like you get more energy, and then you learn to control this energy and discharge it in a way. Like in Nietzsche, for example, he gets like, I guess most of his life he spent basically in this linguistic it's called in metaphysical space or linguistic space. So for him, life was mostly analyzing some concepts, reading, writing, thinking. So what he saw in the real world, it wasn't some actual objects. He didn't pay attention. Maybe he paid attention, but essentially what he was doing is just reading lots of stuff, writing lots of stuff. And when you read certain, books, and when you read a lot, you get charge. So you get input, and then you have to find a way to produce output, let's say. Yeah, and for Nietzsche, it's basically getting more and more information, knowledge, then digesting it, and then making something out of this knowledge. And will to power, so we think like getting more energy, so being able to upload lots of them. Today I can think. It's so hard. I'm so happy that this is a short paragraph. Probably, yeah, if it was a long one, I'll feel much more. Yeah, it feels kind of, I can't, maybe just this because I can't understand what's actually going on here. Yeah, but I'm trying to understand what's going on here, and I'm not happy with what I'm saying about it. So it seems that I can't understand. But anyway, will to power. So a living thing seeks above all to discharge its strength. Life itself is will to power. Self-preservation is only one of the indirect and most frequent results thereof. Okay. Indirect and most frequent result of will to power, self-preservation. Yeah, but preserve, you have to have something to preserve, right? It's not only like self-preservation. What exactly is the self? So you have to acquire something, right? Well, in this case, will to power, yeah, it's kind of understandable. Even on this linguistic landscape. So you get let's say, once again, you get lots of knowledge, you get lots of information, you learn stuff. And what you want to preserve here, like self-preservation, you want to preserve a clear understanding of your concepts, everything you have learned. And yeah, sometimes you forget things. Like now for me, self-preservation, for example, I always think about it as this text itself. So it wants to preserve itself, right? So it uses me as as a tool just to be uploaded on my linguistic space. And then I want to preserve it. So I think about being able to keep in my memory like 12 paragraphs plus preface. But this is a result of will to to learn these paragraphs, to memorize all of this, and without first developing the self. And the self, okay, let's just use another word like structure. So self here is a structure which probably language is important. So the structure, kind of linguistic structure, which is made by interacting with the world. So finding some experience, and there's you basically separate yourself. Like you start small, right? Let's say you have one idea. Yeah, let's talk about language, right? So you start studying the foreign language. You have an idea, like I, for example. Then you okay, I is this is me, and then you begin to assemble more and more ideas. So you think, what exactly should I know? Like I'm studying language, and what kind of ideas, what kind of words do I have? It's a different way from studying grammar, and studying certain constructions. It's basically the way of studying language through studying yourself, or studying yourself through studying language. And so you build more and more broad conceptual network. You analyze this network through itself, and you want to preserve it. But first, yeah, there must be a motivation for doing this, for growing this network. Self-preservation. I'm just trying to do kind of trying to put these concepts in some familiar areas, and see how I can understand them through this. Do some kind of conceptual blending, as it's scientifically called. Anyway, result, right? So will to power. First, you go and you create in terms of life. So life, basically, you start from a tiny whatever. You start like you're a small body, and you grow, and you get more stuff from outside world, if there is an outside world. Well, it seems like this. It seems that this is kind of obvious explanation. So you grow, you get more energy, you get more stuff, you grow your body, and will to power is basically that you're able to control this body, this organism. And you may map it on a linguistic space and say, okay, like developing language, basically you grow, like you learn more and more concepts, and you control all these concepts. You are able to explain what they mean. Like now, for example, I have so much trouble with explaining. It's a learning, since there's like new concepts, new ideas. Obviously, if I talk about it for a couple of hours, the next time when I have to talk about it, I'll be able to explain it. But now it's kind of thinking aloud. So I'm trying to analyze it, trying to see how can I explain it. And that's probably why I feel a little bit uncomfortable right now, since I see I can't understand it clearly. It's still difficult. But yeah, I'm guess I getting like it gets clear for me. The more I pay attention to it, the point is just to pay attention and to be focused and see. All right, once again, a living thing seeks above all to discharge its strength. Life itself is will to power. Self-preservation is only one of the indirect and most frequent results thereof. So self-preservation, first you have to have this, again, you have to have this self. And if it was just self-preservation, it would be meaningless, right? Is to preserve the self, you have to create the self first. And to create it, you have to expand. But again, expand, preserve, expand, preserve. Anyway, let's get further. In short, here as everywhere else, let us be aware of superfluous teleological principles. Superfluous teleological principles. Let us beware of superfluous teleological principles. Yeah, it's like will to power. It's basically a teleological principle, right? Teleology is basically a telos. It's a word for a goal or an end in ancient Greece, and it basically means well, it's goal or a purpose. And teleological principles, there must be a goal, there must be a direction. It's not just self-preservation. Yeah, but Nietzsche is like, is it self-contradiction? So he says, will to power, life itself is will to power, and will to power, obviously, it's like it's not just will, it's will, and it has a goal, and the goal is no power. And at the same time, superfluous teleological principles, right? So, but superfluous, maybe it's an ironic way of saying superfluous. Why is he emphasizing it? Discharge, will to power, results. Yeah, self-preservation is a result. Yeah, okay, beware. In short, and basically in short, he summarized what he said. Here, ourselves, as everywhere else, let us beware of superfluous theological principles. Yeah. So he says, like, we should bethink before putting down the instincts of self-preservation as the cardinal instinct of an organic being. So there may be another instinct, and another instinct is will to power, is will to something. So there is a goal, and let us be aware of this goal, of these principles. One of which is the instinct of self-preservation. Yeah, but no, it's not the case. Okay, one of which is the instinct of self-preservation, right? So it's also a principle. Will to power, it's a principle. It's an instinct directed, like an instinct directed to power or at power. Teleological principles. Okay, one of which is the instinct of self-preservation. Yeah, again, I think it's kind of a joking way to say like superfluous. Yeah, he definitely means by superfluous principles, will to power. It's one of the principles, and self-preservation is another. It's another principle. So he basically wants to say that that like there, everything has a goal, and the self-preservation again is not just the mean, the mean in itself. It's not a goal in itself. It's also directed at something. Okay, we owe it to Spinoza's inconsistency. Well, Spinoza's inconsistency. I have no idea what he wants to say here. Perhaps it makes sense, when you do serious philosophical studying, and now, of course, I'm doing a serious philosophical study. It requires to understand everything. So in this case, if I did this philosophical study 10 years ago, and if I really wanted to understand, I'll probably go and read the entire bunch of collected, not bunch, okay, I read the whole body of collected works of Spinoza, if they were accessible, not just ethics or other famous books, but I don't even know what kind of famous books Spinoza wrote, except the ethics. I haven't read anything by Spinoza except the ethics, but I've read the ethics or ethic. In Russian it's ethic, but in English, no, I haven't read Spinoza in English, just a few fragments of some of his books. Yeah, maybe it makes sense to reread Spinoza in the future. No, I have so many, some famous philosophical works like Wittgenstein, Tractatus, and Hume, Treatise of Human Understanding, and Berkeley's famous book when he talks about solipsism. And yeah, I want to read all of these books. Damn it, like to put a new book here. Or maybe, yeah, why not? Just Spinoza's ethics may have. Okay, it doesn't matter. So it is thus an effect that method ordains. This does an effect that method ordains, which must be essentially economy of principles. Here I don't understand anything. Okay, method ordains. Okay, it is thus an effect that method ordains. So the method makes you, he talks about cardinal instinct, and here probably method ordains means that the method makes the instinct depending on the method. You have the power of you have the hierarchy of instincts, and the self-preservation is placed on top depending on the method. If you have another method, you will have will to power, or you will have something else, which must be essentially economy of principles. Economy of principles. What the hell does this mean? Okay, anyway, I think it's enough. I made a fool of myself for an entire hour, and I want to get and think deeply about something else without without feeling uncomfortable. And that's perhaps time to stop.